Hello again, everyone, and thanks again for joining us on the Business Freedom Formula. My name is John Arntz, and I'm your host, and I'm honored today to have as my guest Nicole Louise Keeber. Hello, Nicole. How are you?
Hey there, it's good to see you. I'm good.
Actually, I think it's Louis Keeber, isn't it? I said that wrong. I apologize.
It's okay, it happens.
Happens. Yeah. Well, they butcher my last name all the time since I was old enough to remember, so I try not to do that. So, Nicole, tell us, what new and exciting is going on in your business right now?
Oh my gosh. So, what is new and exciting is that after 10 years of having my primary business, which has been Nicole Lewis Keeper Coaching, where I am a business therapist for entrepreneurs, small business owners, I have started to put some focus on building the leadership side of my business called Insightful Work. And it's we've had a really two good 2 years, and so we're going to expand into 2026, which is awesome. So I'm excited about what's possible with that focus in the business as well. So yeah, that's what we're working on.
Has your book been published? In
Yeah, it's been around for a minute. I
Okay.
wrote this book in, oh my gosh, I think it was published in 2023. Yeah, I'm pretty
Oh,
sure that's when I'm bad with dates, but
okay.
around about there. But it's still plugging along. Like it's a very unique book in that it talks about how to build a relationship with your business that feels supportive, and helps you create emotional sustainability as opposed to creating a relationship with your business that's demanding and demeaning. And I was a therapist for 18 years before I started my business. And so I'm someone who kind of sees the unique intersection between, childhood wounding and how it shows up for us in life and our businesses. And my book outlines some of that and focuses on the fact that when we start a business, we enter into a relationship. You are not your business. It is not your baby. It is
Right.
something outside of you that
Hmm.
you're relating to. And so, therefore, it is often the case that we could default into roles in relationship with our business that we've felt before other places. So that this book goes all into that.
Okay. Okay. That sounds really interesting. I know I might struggle here forming this question correctly, but
Mhm.
um it's interesting that you talked about forming a relationship with your business. And I know in conversations with um other men I know, okay, we tend to feel that we are the work we do. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know that women see what they do the same way. And I would like you to compare and contrast, if you will, based on your experience on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I feel like the men that I've worked with over the past 10 years, because I work with a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, they do identify with their work as an identity much
Mhm.
more than I think women identify with their work solely as their identity. I think women have more identities and roles kind of in general that
Hmm.
that they connect with more so
Sure.
than I think men do. And I think that's why men overly identify with their work. And even so, let me give you an example. Even if you're a father and you identify as a father,
Right.
you are still likely to recreate patterns that you had as a child with the father and the father that you saw how they operated in the world, right? And so
Okay. Okay.
even though that might be something you're really identified with and maybe not, so much, it's not too many other identities, those experiences that we have still drive that relationship
Sure.
to what it means to be a father, a
Sure.
relationship, what it means to be, in your career and whatever that identified role is, because our patterns develop early in childhood and in developmental years, and they play
Hmm.
out across the life cycle, whether
Hmm.
it's career, work, relationships, whatever that may be. So yes, I do see that men identify much more with the role and the identity of their work, and your career and your business are still something outside of you that you're relating to.
Yeah. It's one of those interesting things I've noticed about having conversations with them. Like, there's um, a coworker who recently got hurt where I work, and he's going to be out for several weeks.
Mm,
And he's not the kind of man to sit still and wait for things to happen. He's got to be out there. And I know it's driving him crazy
hmm
because, he's worked his whole life since, in fact, when I met the man, um, he had been working probably since he was 11 or 12 with his dad, hadn't even completed high school. So,
hmm
work was his identity and what he
hmm
did. And I see that. And I see that in my youngest son. So I see him a lot more frequently than my other children, and it's really work focused. And then I watch my daughter-in-law, who's also got a couple of little businesses going, but she doesn't
hmm
seem to be as focused with that. And I don't know if that's just the, nature of men and women that we do things differently, but you know,
Yeah, I mean, if that's possible.
yeah. Because I noticed that what you said, like you tend to identify with men tend to identify with their fathers and what grew up, and I see that with my youngest son. My parents divorced when I was very young, and I
hmm
didn't really have a lot of men in my life except probably my teachers and my scoutmaster.
hmm
Okay. And I can't really tell how those people worked. So I sort of developed my own identity, but I can see now that you mention it, I can see that in my son.
Yeah, I mean, developmentally, what is appropriate is for us to learn how to be by watching the adults around us. Like, even if you
Right.
see,
Right.
like, kittens with their mom's teaching them how to
Sure.
be a cat. And
Right.
it's very developmentally appropriate to do that. And I do think that because of the culture we live in, that men in general have been overly identified with what they can do or what
Right.
they can produce. And the gentleman that you mentioned, if they've been working with their dad since they were 12, like if you look at it from kind of a deeper standpoint, if I'm not working, then who am I?
Right.
What would
Right.
my dad think? Like
Right.
there's usually an undercurrent about
Hmm.
those type of things when it comes to our productivity in the world. And I think women are used to holding more identities than men are. And that
I
may be why we don't
and
over-identify to one.
and I would agree with that.
hmm
Um, having growing up, basically living in my grandparents' home with older female cousins, sort of shepherding me and my two brothers along. I had a lot of female influence growing up and so I think I view things a little differently. But it's interesting because when I talk with other guys and we talk about, well, oh, so and so hasn't done any work in a while, and or he can't make up his mind what he wants to do. The guy needs to get off the dime and figure it out. And we tend to put other men down because they're not producing.
hmm
And and I think that's why people of my generation have trouble with people who work from home and are influencers because
hmm
it doesn't look like work.
Yeah.
Work should get your hands dirty. You know, so it's a very different. And I think that's why young people have trouble with, I'm just going to call it what it is, boomers, because we
hmm
look at work differently because it was different.
Yeah, the opportunities were different. The
Mhm.
cultural implications of work were different. And,
Mhm.
I think that one of the traps we get stuck in as we get older, and I'm a Gen Xer, is that we can tend to fall into, kind of a closed mindset about what things are supposed to look like and
Mhm.
what innovation is and the opportunity. And and I think that's something that we do. And the invitation is to kind of keep an open mindset to see that work doesn't necessarily have to be hard. It's just something that we do for money. And we
Sure,
live in a
sure,
society that you have to work to have money to survive. That's
right.
how we live, and that it can look a lot of different ways.
Hmm. Now, in your work with founders and business owners, have you ever worked with people in the nonprofit sector?
Yeah, we actually do with the leadership side of my business for Insightful Work. We do a lot of support and leadership and trainings in nonprofits. And I trained with Dr. Brene Brown in 2019. She wrote Dare to Lead, Daring Greatly, many different books based upon her research of shame and vulnerability. And she has worked with the military, Amazon, you name it. She's gone into their
Hmm.
companies to spearhead what it means to be vulnerable as leaders, but also, solid leadership skills and tools. And I trained with her, and so I go into a lot of different organizations, companies, and nonprofits to train their leaders on Dare to Lead, frameworks and principles. And what we have found is that nonprofits are really ripe for this type of leadership development because the people who are drawn to nonprofit work tend to be more emotionally aware and,
Okay.
civically concerned people.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
a
and
completely different mindset. Sure.
it really is. It really is. And, and there's always a shadow side to everything. They
Hmm.
can end up overworking themselves or, not being always as physically competent as maybe they need to, or they don't see themselves as leaders. Like we do a lot of leadership development, helping people see themselves as leaders. And I always say you're a leader whether you think you are or not, even if it's just to yourself. So we spend a lot of time with those leaders, helping them see who they are as a leader and what that would look like in practice.
I can see that because I kind of get that intuitively. I don't know that I've ever actually talked to anybody on a long term who works in a nonprofit. I know one of my coworkers years ago, his wife worked and was like in upper management of a nonprofit.
Hmm.
And I remember him talking about it, but other than that, um, I'm sure we talked about some of the struggles and stuff that were going on with that organization. And I know that for a large part, a lot of it is fundraising, but I can also see some other aspects because you're still running an organization. It's really
Hmm.
no different than running any other business. It's just that the incomes and the outflows are different. It's the
Yeah.
mechanisms in the middle that still
Hmm.
need to be done. You still need to track finances. You still need to get the work done. You still need to contact people. Instead of getting in new customers, you're getting in new donors. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Might be harder to get a donor than a customer. I don't know, but you're
Hmm.
still getting people to part with their money, right?
Yeah, and I mean,
In a
and what I've
way,
seen
yeah.
is like, I used to before I started work, I'm a social worker. Like that's my training is as I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have a master's degree in social work, and I went a clinical trial route so I could
Mhm.
do therapy. And so I did that for
Sure,
18 years and worked in different settings. And so I've been in some nonprofits, but even I didn't realize that nonprofit isn't just nonprofit. There's so many different types. And we've worked with umbrella organizations that are nonprofits that have like 30 little individual, ones underneath them. And so
sure,
I thought nonprofit meant we won't get paid a lot to work with them. And that's not
right.
necessarily true. Like some of the biggest revenue we've had in the past year has been working with nonprofits in very strategic ways under different types of funding. So I used to think nonprofit was one thing, but is very different. So each one of those organizations really do need different types of support when it comes to leadership, and nonprofits that are started by a founder, like this is my personal thing in life that I want to do,
Right,
um, tend to struggle more because the founder of the nonprofit is still overly identified with the problem, the trauma, the challenge that
right.
they started the nonprofit to fix. And I
Hmm.
see that a lot with the founders and entrepreneurs I work with. Many of them started a business because there was something they wanted to prove, something they wanted to overcome. And
Hmm.
again, they're still very emotionally identified with the origin of their business. And so
Hmm.
I've seen those two parallels in both of these spaces where we have to do work around the emotional sustainability of what it is that you're doing, whether it's
Hmm.
as an entrepreneur or you've started a nonprofit. It can get in the way. It can be
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. It's because founders and that are drawn to something that interests them
Hmm.
or that they know they're good at.
Hmm.
Um, Otherwise, I mean, I can't see myself ever starting a business as a hairstylist
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
have no training in that, no interest in it. Although, from a purely business standpoint, it may make more sense because I can't do the work. So now I have to do the business development.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
from that standpoint, I can't get all tied up in, I can't limit myself because I can only do so many heads a day,
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
that's another viewpoint. In fact, that's something that Michael Gerber in his book, The E-Myth, talked about was that type of thing about quit being the technician and be the CEO of your business, basically. So,
Yeah. Sometimes that
but
means
we
you
all
have
get
to,
drawn to something, and that's how we
yes.
all get started.
Yeah, and we have to change how we see ourselves within the business at
Mhm,
different growth points where you go from
mhm,
being the, sole practitioner to the CEO who has to have a different mindset, a different
mhm,
energy, a different focus. And that stretches our capacity, each one of those growth levels. It really does. And
mhm.
I mean, I work with people every day who started a business to try and prove something to someone. And
Sure.
I'm always asking, okay, so when will you have proved it? At what revenue level will you have finally proved this thing? At what growth level will you have finally proved this thing? And they haven't given me a good answer yet. So
Mhm.
then we have
Yeah.
to kind of look out for that.
Yeah. Now, in working with the customers that you've worked, your clients that you've worked with on their businesses and that, just sort of as a general idea, how many of them have an exit strategy?
It depends on what type of, founder. If
Mhm.
they're in startup, they're thinking about it from get. Like they're not interested. They want to create this,
Sure, sure,
startup. They want to found it, start it, and get out. And like they're thinking like 3, 4 years in,
sure.
as far as exit. Some of the people that I've worked with who've had agencies, like I've worked with a lot of people who have founded PR agencies, interior design firms, because it's something that they love doing
Right.
and they have a different relationship with the work because it's something that they love.
Hmm.
They struggle, I think, a little bit more to build in what it means to leave or to
Hmm.
exit or to sell or
Hmm.
to hand down, whatever
Hmm.
that is. Because it's so much a part of their identity. And
Sure.
so, yeah, I see them struggling a lot more.
Yeah. Some of the um my daily job, I work with a company that distributes fencing material. And I know of two of our customers where the founder has retired
Hmm.
and the family is running the business. And when I talk to the family members, yeah, oh yeah, dad still sticks his nose in. He can't let it go. And I can understand that because you've built this thing and it's yours. And
Hmm.
even though you've handed it off, um, and then I know you probably run into people where you've got this business going and they want to, leave it for their children, and the children don't want to have anything to do with it because I'm not working 80 hours a week,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
So,
legacy, like family and legacy businesses. I've worked with people because again, they're attracted to working with me because I was a therapist for 18 years. So
mhm,
they definitely require a certain touch and can
mhm,
be super complicated. If it's, someone who's created blood, sweat, and tears their whole life to leave something that is not wanted by their
mhm,
kids, or that the children are interested in staking their own claim and doing their own work, and the founder can't quite let it go. Like there's a lot of
yeah,
family dynamics and boundaries that
sure,
come up around this.
sure. I bet there are. I
Hmm.
bet
Oh
there are.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
mean,
whole different type of work with folks.
right. Because not, yeah, it's the family dynamic, I think, that's probably the biggest thing is what went on for that 20, 30 years before,
Hmm.
how that goes. I can
Hmm.
see that. I can really see how that
Oh
would
yeah.
impact. Yeah. Yeah, and everywhere you look. I think it's a lot doing like when we all grew up and we said, there's no way I'm going to be like my mom or my dad.
Hmm.
And then one day we open our mouth and out comes our mom or dad.
Yeah.
And then we realize we are our parents. And it's the same thing I think I can see with a business where people would do that, which maybe makes more sense to build your business to the point where when you're ready to offload it, you offload it to somebody you don't know
Yeah.
because they're not going to let you stick your nose back in the door. You
Yeah.
know?
I'm a huge believer in planning for endings at the beginning of something that you start, whether it's a business, a project, that you need to plan for the ending. What does the ending look like? What do we need to know? What do we need to look at and know to know that it's time? What could the different pathways be?
Mhm.
I really truly believe that. Even when I hire a contractor or an employee to come on and work with me, we talk about what the end looks like.
Sure,
Because there will be an ending. They will move
sure.
on. They'll,
Mhm.
but we pretend like that's not going to happen. And I see that happening with a lot of founders and legacy businesses that, they have never planned for what the end could look like or the
Mhm.
transition.
Right.
And there can be a beautiful dynamic that happens if the person sells the company to someone else that's not emotionally connected to it at all,
Hmm.
and the family can benefit financially from that transaction if the person who founded it is willing to let it go.
Right.
That's the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard, especially it's like I'll give an analogy. It's like when your child announces that they're got their own place and they're moving out.
Hmm.
It's you expect it because that's what we do as adults, but it's still difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that emotionally and aware people are open to those ideas of transitions and what is
Hmm.
appropriate developmentally, and
Hmm.
the endings happen, and we talked about at the beginning of our time with each other being overly identified with your work.
Sure.
There's an opportunity to find a new identity, and I think sometimes that
Mhm.
can bring up a lot of fear. So the more that we plan that into our career development for
Mhm.
ourselves, that we're not always just focusing on work, that we're developing other interests, other things that we're curious about. I think it makes those transitions so much easier because we have expanded our identity, whether we're selling our
Mhm.
company or,
Right.
retiring from, a corporate or,
Mhm.
9 to 5 type of job.
Yeah, and I would think too that if an individual is spending a great deal of time in their business, let's say 50, 60 hours a week running their business, whatever they do, and that business develops to the point where they're now down to 20 hours a week because the thing is running like it's supposed to with the staff that they've employed and the leadership they've developed and all of this, that gives them time to look at other things. Maybe
Mhm.
they get involved in a community group or something. So now I think that breaks some of that. I don't know that you're going to completely break it. I don't think that would ever happen, but
Mhm.
you've now got an interest in maybe all of a sudden you're more interested over here than you are what's over here, and
Yeah.
I can, that maybe that's part of it too, is that easing that transition of realizing this has to happen at some point.
Yeah, it's acceptance that the transition is normal
Hmm.
and allowing yourself to direct it in ways that feel good to you as opposed to it just happening or
Hmm.
just kind of hitting that wall because it is going to happen at some point. So I think if we can give ourselves that curiosity to say, well, what would I want to spend my time on? And I've worked with so many entrepreneurs who streamline their business and they're doing very well. They are down to those 20 hours a week. And what their temptation to do is to fill all that white space in their calendar with more busy work or other things that aren't necessarily what they're interested in. It just feels like they should do it.
Hmm.
So protecting the white space in your calendar and not filling it up with shoulds is a huge part of this work because
Sure.
you have this thing over here that's supporting your life, it's doing really well. This is your space to kind of design what might come next for you or to be curious about what are you interested in outside of just your whole identity being work and
Right.
productivity.
Sure.
Don't plug it up with more stuff.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so that just so you're busy to be busy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, fine, but it's not going to feel fulfilling. And many people feel very uncomfortable with space in their calendar. And so
Hmm.
that's a deeper question as to why does this feel
Yeah,
uncomfortable?
I've known several people like that in my life.
Hmm.
And I may see one every time I look in the mirror. I'm not quite sure, but I might. But
My older
no,
sister's type A like that. I'm type B. I laugh about this all the time. I'm like, I'm type B. Give me white space. I will
yeah,
take it. But my older sister's a doer. Like we're never just sitting around and chatting or watching movies. She's doing something else at the same time.
doing
And she
something.
doesn't
Yeah,
have to. It's just she
yeah.
can't sit
You
still.
just can't. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I get that. Um, so what? You mentioned here in the information you gave me in the beginning that you were working on visibility
Hmm.
for your business. So what does that look like? What is it that you
Yeah.
are working on that?
Yeah, so for me, the visibility comes down to getting in more spaces, either through podcasts or speaking. A lot of the clients that I've had in the last 10 years in my one-on-one work have come from speaking opportunities because what I do is a little weird. And,
Mhm.
exploring the impact of childhood trauma on entrepreneurship is not just like the usual conversation. So I
Sure.
have found that when people hear me speak, they get it. And it expands their mind about what the possibility of, having emotional sustainability for their business could look like. And so for me, expanding my visibility around the leadership side of things is kind of like my next goal.
Mhm.
And it means speaking, it means meeting new people, expanding my community. I tend to hang out with a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, and I'm really trying to expand that out to different industries and people who are in corporate and that type of thing too. So for visibility, that's what that means for me.
Yeah, okay. I was, see, I can't remember what year it was. All I remember is what interrupted it. I was at one time attending this, I don't know if you've ever heard of an organization called 1 Million Cups of Coffee.
I don't think so. I have to look that up.
Okay. It was like I'm assuming it's still around. There was a local chapter in the area I live in, and my work hours allowed me to go to these meetings once a month. And it's basically a networking organization. And it was sponsored by I know it was partly sponsored by the local community college, but also some county education initiative, whatever.
Mhm.
And they offered this leadership program that took place over time. And I signed up for it. And I was
Mhm.
the only individual person who went there, and the only one
Okay.
that wasn't sponsored by their company.
Oh,
Okay. So
yeah.
some companies sent 3 or 4 people and paid for the fees and all that. But it was very enlightening. Unfortunately, um, the whole COVID shutdown chopped everything short, but we were out visiting different
Hmm.
businesses and getting a chance to talk to the founders of like a microbrewery of
Hmm.
a company that actually makes, I didn't even know this was a thing, actually makes helmets for fire departments. They make them
Okay.
in leather, they make them in different styles. They have all
Hmm.
this. They had that, what is that big, what is it? ISO 9000 or something like that. That's that big, um, I remember was really big um,
Hmm.
many years ago on productivity and how they'd cut everything down to be absolutely as minimalist as possible.
Hmm.
It really amazed because they had different workstations, and while the tools were the same, they were all color coded. So you knew if you had a blue tool in the green area, it didn't belong there.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. And there was a spot for it.
Hmm.
So you could look at the tool rack and see that it was missing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the most amazing thing because everything works. So, but it was in a really enlightening uh, program. And the things I learned, to me, I think personality wise, a lot of it was almost intuitive in the way I deal with people and that
Hmm.
personally, but there was a lot to learn. And I'm going to give you a plug. I would tell anybody a leadership program is well worth taking. And it doesn't need to be the founder. Leadership
Hmm.
programs, I feel, work well for your rank and file people so they will take initiative, so they will have a better understanding with each other. I think,
Yeah.
especially if you
Yeah.
have a diverse environment where, and I don't
Absolutely.
necessarily mean racially diverse. I'm just talking about generationally diverse
Yep.
can be even worse than dealing with um I work with too many millennials.
I think you're kind of spot on there. Like, I think generational differences in many ways can be a bigger divide. Because when you think about it, we have people, from, like maybe younger boomer all the way down to Gen Z in
Mhm,
workspaces trying to communicate and get to know each
mhm,
other and work together with
mhm.
vastly different lived experiences
Sure.
and expectations and identities and all those things. So it can be really challenging. But what I love about leadership trainings is that we help people identify who they are as a leader, but then you
Mhm.
have common language and tools and skills that we teach them to use so everybody knows
Sure.
what this definition of leadership is. Everybody knows what this is. Everybody knows that we're going to use this tool to have a hard conversation, and we don't have to
Mhm.
figure it out. Like you said, the tool has the same place to go. Everything's coded, color
Mhm.
coded. And when you can bring that into an environment, you can build those connections and trust between those generations. And I think that that's
Sure.
so important.
Yeah.
Our Lancaster County Chamber has meetings like that where you can go and see different types of
Mhm.
industry. And I haven't done that. And what you just mentioned made me curious about what that could look like to
Yeah.
join those morning coffees and different industries to see how they work.
Yeah. It would, the way this format would work is they would have two people give short presentations on their business.
Hmm.
And some of them were nonprofit. One gentleman in particular, and this was kind of an interesting thing. He was a Vietnam veteran, and his nonprofit involved getting wheelchairs for people in Vietnam
Hmm.
that needed wheelchairs because apparently they don't have an industry there. And he would travel back and forth all the time. And I just thought, in one part of your life, they were trying to kill you. And now
Hmm.
you're over there helping people, which
Yeah, that's a life story, isn't it?
which is really amazing. I mean,
Hmm.
I never had an opportunity to talk with him about how that transition went from that young, military guy to where he is today. And then COVID shut all of that down, and I don't know that it's restarted. I've even tried to reach out to a lot of those people I had contacts with,
Hmm.
and so many of their emails are dead.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know if they've moved on to other things or what's going on. So it was kind of sad. That was a sad point. But but
I hope they
so
find a way through. People are really craving
mm,
space with each other and time in person.
it just occurred to me the other day while I was driving, maybe I should pull out those phone numbers and try doing some text messaging and see, because people will not necessarily let go of their phone number.
Hmm.
They may change an email address at a heartbeat, but they don't always, because it's just too hard to get all those contacts back in your phone.
Hmm. Yeah, your phone number has currency.
And then let everybody else know that your number changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, Nicole, how can people contact you if they want to learn more about your business or get to maybe connect with you and work something out? How can they do
Yeah,
that?
I
What's
think
the easiest way?
yeah, so my website is nicole.lewis-keeber.com. So it's my name, makes it pretty easy. And I'm on LinkedIn, so that is a very easy place for people to find me. They don't have to make sure they have the right web address. You can
Mhm.
always find me on LinkedIn, and my links to other things are there. So it's a good place to look as well. And my leadership company, Insightful Work, is also on LinkedIn.
Okay, so you don't actually have a website for insightful work.
I do. It's insightfulwork.com.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I'm going to put all this stuff in the description of
Hmm.
is there a dash or a period between insightful and work or just one word?
Nope, it's just one word.
Okay. Get this all down. All righty. Nicole, thank you so much for being a guest today. This was very interesting,
Thank you
and
for having me.
I hope it grows for you. I
Thank
really
you.
do. I'm curious about your book and your mentor's book there, Dare to Lead. That looks like a very
Highly
interesting.
recommend it. If you've not read Dare to Lead, I highly recommend it. Dr. Brene Brown's an amazing researcher, speaker, author, leadership, just she's amazing. And my book's called How to Love Your Business, and it's on Amazon.
It's called what?
How to Love Your Business.
How to Love Your Business. And that's probably available on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, thank you. I will make sure all of that gets there so people can find it.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Appreciate you. Thank you for having me, John. I'm speaking fast. I'm just like running words together now.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I get it.
Blah.
All right. Thanks a lot, Nicole, and good luck to you.
Thank you.